Good evening and welcome to this talk from the Association of Pittsburgh Priests. I'm Sister Barbara Finch. I'm presently the Vice President. And our talk this evening is how to stand in solidarity with migrants and asylum seekers. We're privileged to have two speakers with us this evening, Father Brendan Curran from Chicago, and we also have Sister Janice Vanderneck, who is our local advocate for Casa San Jose.
What a delight. Real honor to join you today. Thank you for your years of work on building community, even in the midst of struggles of gathering folks across your area. It's a real privilege to be a part of this and really an essential sign of your commitment by seeking to discuss this difficult, conflictual, and controversial area of our pastoral lives and our civic communities of this day. I should begin by saying, first of all, I'm a first generation immigrant. My father was born on the west coast of Ireland. That has been a formative experience for me, family near and far, like so many families across our country and the world, of migrant peoples on the move, seeking refuge, support, strength, help, and resource for the betterment of their families and their future. I say that because in the midst of this painful crisis that we're living through, certainly here in Chicago, it has felt like a siege since August, and it has not let up, but it has actually been something we have struggled with each and every day. Um, it is important for us to begin with perspective. Um, there are plenty of different people who are sharing sound bites of their opinions about the difficulties, the struggles, and pathways of uh, remedies for the immigration crisis of the United States. But Catholics and our faith roots are one that is really important for us to recognize, identify, and nurture as we are people of faith. Um, we purport to be people who, from our baptism, are washed in the waters of new life with new hope and a new vision from that very beginning of our faith story. Uh, as we think about it, as we experience it, before getting into details, what's going on in Chicago, I feel it is utterly important to ground ourselves in the experience of our roots and heritage, which have been a story throughout the Bible of migrant people continuing to follow the word of God. That needs to be a place that we're intentional about going into, coming out of discussions, debates, and negotiations about the immigration crisis we're living in the United States today, because it is where we are coming from. It is who we are as ministers of the church. So, any way for us to shed light onto this subject must be rooted from remembering that it was Abraham and Sarah who welcomed strangers at their property, all the way back to some of the beginning roots of our Bible, our sacred scripture. It was in those experiences of their response to strangers on their property who they chose to welcome that God recognized this would be the father and mother of generations of peoples on the move, the experience of the Israelites in their journey. That has continued to be another aspect of our journey as people uh, rooted in the Bible. We must remember countless different occasions, but moving quickly to recognizing the Holy Family. It is Mary and Joseph who sought refuge outside of their country and experiencing a place to find home in order to protect their newborn child who was under direct threat from the leadership of a government from the Roman Empire who sought to eliminate the child Jesus and massacre children. They sought root and refuge in another land in order to protect their family, the Holy Family. This has been a part of our legacy as people of faith that we must keep in front of us, that Jesus chose to remind the apostles and the followers of the experience of a parable of the Good Samaritan, the good foreigner who chose to stop, pick up a person who had been beaten up and mugged on the side of a road and make sure he had room in an inn so that he would be protected. Others passed by. Doesn't say much for a priest because that was one among them who ignored this person on the side of the road. But we must recognize the intentionality of our sacred roots and the story of the gospel that continually remind us to be called by the Beatitudes, to be called by the story of when the apostles asked Jesus how they should pray. He shared that experience of the Lord's Prayer, right? A reminder to say that we must celebrate the blessings of the food that we receive and be blessed by it and seek it, that it might be something experienced by all people, no matter where they are. And of course, the vision of that reign of God to come. We could spend the entire conversation on the biblical roots, but I think you asked me to talk about Chicago. It's the place I grew up. I grew up on the south side of Chicago. I serve on the west side of Chicago now, and it has been a place where important leaders have led us, myself personally, by two remarkable sisters, Mercy Sisters, Sister Joanne Perch and Sister Pat Murphy. Sister Pat Murphy, we just buried this year, but they really were the anchors of a heritage of starting these structures called Brothers and Sisters for Immigrants and Priests for Justice for Immigrants that were co-founded at an absolute intentional moment in the attempt to pass comprehensive immigration reform during the period of 2005 to 2007. I say that because it was the effort of Pat Murphy and Joanne Perch and others, and I had a privilege to be a part of the co-founding group to dialogue and discuss with Homeland Security, as we now know it since 9/11, that was launched and founded by our federal government in order to seek access for decent pastoral care so that a faith leader could provide prayer and reassurance to folks detained in our detention centers. And it was never the intention of those dialogues and negotiations to simply be about one detention center, if not to update the whole system of the immigration system of the United States to recognize, just like the prison system, just like the jail system provides opportunity and space for chaplains and pastoral care to have access to faith leaders and an experience of faith for no matter who is detained. That was part of an effort over the last 19 years, for which I'm proud to have been a co-founding part of. Those were different days. In the midst of this recent effort, which ironically and unethically is titled the Midway Blitz, which is actually titled on a military term for an invasion, which is absolutely appropriate on our experience on the ground because it has been felt that way as an experience of an operative occupying Chicago and northern Illinois by federal agents in our actual experience. It pains me to say that because I have a number of family members and cousins and good friends in public service who have been doing public government service in many capacities, from armed forces to National Guard and beyond. And what we have experienced and I have experienced that I'll share with you with some brief slides just to help share some of our story of what we're witnessing in Chicago is nothing but shameful for what we're experiencing on the day to day by those on behalf of the government who we invest in with our tax money and our investments across our community who represent each of us. It is painful and tragic for me to put it in that perspective, but sadly and tragically, there are no better, more appropriate ways to identify what we're witnessing than to be upfront and truthful about this. Um, in recent years, for a number of years, myself and other co-founders of this group at Broadview Detention Center, it's the nearest area detention center to the city of Chicago population, for which Department of Homeland Security uh, takes those detained off the streets of the area of Chicago and northern Illinois and southern Wisconsin and process them through the Broadview Detention Center. And then also is an avenue out of the country where Broadview Detention Center is a place of the final space for which detainees spend their time before being removed from the country in actual deportation, moving them from Broadview Detention Center on the west side of Chicago to Chicago's O'Hare Airport to points at borders across the United States. I say that by putting perspective on what we're seeing here. The federal government spoke to a focus on various places across the country, namely among them Chicago, as an effort by the federal government, in their own words, to seek support for helping rectify the problem of street violence in our area of the city of Chicago. None of this operation have dealt with anything to do with street violence. This is actually the lowest numbers of uh, typical measurements of violence in the city of Chicago, specifically in 5 years. Homicides are their lowest in 5 years. By the way, all homicides are a shameful statistic and one of the most prominent countries in the world. But just to remind ourselves of some of the reasons that the federal government said they were operating in Chicago and what was their goal or direction of their purpose. It was to make the city safer. And actually, what it has been is nothing but a nightmare for church ministers, for people of God in the day to day experience in which we serve. When I say that, what I'm speaking of, first and foremost, that it has taken over our ministry. I have served for years, both as pastor and at a nonprofit organization in Chicago's near West Side immigrant community. Um, we serve a predominant
Yeah,
number
maybe I hit something
of
wrong
those
because usually I
who
do.
serve or attend masses and services. They are people who are immigrants themselves, who have members of their family in various legal status categories, transitioning in visas, applicants for permanent residency. A number of these different, very complicated processes are part of family systems, whole family systems of whole majority of our serving area of our ministries where we serve. I, in having been serving in this area, have become a messenger and a communicator across different groups across this space. When I say that, what I mean is I hear from people on the ground. One of the first signs of this nightmare was actually the final day of school at Chicago Public Schools in Chicago's Pilsen neighborhood, where my office physically is. Um, we got an alarming message from rapid responders across the Chicago area and across the country. Neighborhoods have built groupings of WhatsApp groups or Signal chat groups that are social media tools for which people can communicate with each other in some relative privacy as they can seek or find. And they have been the eyes and ears of the community, recognizing where, for example, where schools are, for other institutions are, for churches are, that they might be places that are protected under this situation. The final day of classes at Chicago Public Schools in June was a day that was a first sign that things were getting worse. We had a report uh, at a laundromat parking lot right in front of a public park, Garrison Park, on Chicago's west side, right next to an elementary school that was about to dismiss for the summer, 1 hour from dismissal. And if all of you who know, you can attest to that usually on the final day of school, many, many parents, instead of their caregivers or others, actually physically go to pick up their child, especially from kindergarten, early education, and especially those little ones from school, because it's a very joyous time for kids. They're breaking for the summer. What we recognized when we saw signs from the parking lot of 5 immigration vehicles of ICE agents that had congregated in the parking lot immediate to the wall of the building of that Chicago public school, we thought we were possibly in the midst of a very bad moment in history. And immediately, rapid responders sprung into action. I literally took off in my car over to the parking lot myself, and we simply lifted up our phones to the ICE agents that we confirmed and seeing of some 12 or 14 agents in the parking lot gathered there. And we just told them with that signal in a peaceful way that we were there observing and recording anything that they might do untowardly against families under threat by their presence at that scene, because it was literally an hour from dismissal. The agents clearly recognized that they were being watched by the community and chose to speed off and took off, averting a possible absolute historic moment of disaster of detaining numbers of people at the dismissal on the final day of school. That has been the kind of experience that we have experienced on in an ongoing basis, especially heightened since mid-August, um, where um, first of all, our priests and religious sisters and lay leaders have been going to Broadview Detention Center, the nearest detention center near our community of high population, the city of Chicago. For 19 years, we pray the rosary on Friday mornings in front of the detention center, like what I'm very honored that you continue to do in your own area as a witness of our Catholic faith to seek comprehensive immigration reform in a peaceful manner, nudged by our own faith roots, our dedication, and our commitment to mission to protecting peoples on the move across the world. In the midst of that, what we have seen since mid-August has been absolutely scandalous. Since that time period, we have now been seeing um, immigration agents um, serving up as snipers on the roof of the Broadview Detention Center with their guns pointed down towards the ground. This has been a public sharing that we have shared over these days of our own witness of this type of acts of gesture and aggression that we have seen. I myself have seen immigration agents, federal agents, or what we don't even know who they are, because instead of 19 years ago being agents in uniform that would receive us at the door with someone's personal belongings or medicine, that we assisted a family member to make sure they got exchanged to a loved one heading for the border. Um, we instead, for the last 2 months, have witnessed federal agents in camouflage, no name tag, no ability to see their full face, completely masked up and covered up, not knowing what agency they identify as, wearing full military equipment, including AR-15s or AK-47s, carried in at their front, as if we are going to commit some act of violence that they felt under threat by. In addition to this, we have witnessed around our space of the prayer of federal agents who have hurled uh, 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 pepper uh, bullets out at the crowd of protesters or those gathered after the prayer that we share on Friday mornings. Tear gas. I myself have been a recipient of tear gas in that space. These are not things that we ever were trained to do at seminary. These are not things that we ever expected our government to do to us if we did not already commit some act of threat, physical threat, or act of violence against them as public servants on our behalf. That is what has absolutely broken my heart in seeing that over the years, over these weeks, instead of a place where it was always a place of difference of public policy, that we were there to serve as ministers of the church on behalf of our immigrant community. But we also were very aware that immigrants were inside that detention facility and could hear us. We had always heard word back, uh, giving gratitude to us through family members or loved ones who later told us I could hear them leading prayer or rosary at the detention center. We could hear them even though we were inside, even though we couldn't look out, even though we couldn't confirm or participate directly in it. It helped us be reassured that God was not going to abandon us. That's the very reason we do that. Um, Tragically and sadly, what used to be a space for our prayer right up in front of the front door of the detention center was now met with a partition of a wall that was drawn overnight across the street, obstructing the street, like what I read about, never grew up in, the era of separating Berlin. I kid you not, that is literally what was done on erecting a fence across a public street where businesses were on both sides, where emergency ambulances, firefighters could not pass through that fence that was erected for a number of weeks until it was contested in the courts to remove the fence by force. I'm saying this because all of this is what we were witness to and have been witness to during these weeks. A shameful example of these acts against us. I've been on city streets where I've seen an operation of ICE agents where they have gotten out and indiscriminately pulled people over, forcing them to identify their legal status. I don't know of a U.S. law that requires us to carry proof of our legal status wherever we are inside in the internal part of our country. And now, during this operation, people have been forced to find ways to carry this for their own safety and for avoidance of being detained. I want to now show you some slides that represent some of this situation we've been living in Chicago to help assist you in understanding the breadth of this, that I hope it will be helpful because we have to tell our story. So right now I am simply sharing my screen and going to show you our slideshow just so you can see it more readily, so that you might follow along with me. These are the images I deal with in ministry today. Those are the agents I'm speaking of. It's hard to see it. I apologize for the imagery, but there's so many images I wouldn't have enough room nor time in the presentation. One night, a month ago, over 300 federal agents stormed a building. They climbed over fences, broke in the front door, catapulted out of helicopters onto the roof. Paratroopers landed on the roof of that public building where 250 families live. A majority of them are African Americans, seeking allegedly Salvatrucha members of an organized crime organization, perpetrated or allegedly from Venezuela, who they alleged or spoke to that this was the reason for this operation at 2 o'clock in the morning one night on the southeast side of Chicago. All 250 families were woken by force. They broke down every single apartment door. They zip tied kids together on the front lawn of the building. They held people for hours of interrogation, interrogating every single family, adult and child, demanding of them their identification, to prove they're not in some way part of an organized crime family. I say this tragically because these are the kind of things that have occurred. They came out of budget rental trucks. That's what you see at the top right of your screen. And instead of opening the bay door of belongings somebody might be moving in, no, there were dozens of federal agents who spilled out of the budget rental truck in order to conduct this operation in the middle of the night. I just say that. There are so many different stories I tragically have to share with you, but to give you an idea of the degree of extremism that we've had of what is an operation occupying Chicago at this time, um, it needed to be something we needed to share with you in this conversation. Um, Tragically, one morning, a month and a half ago, a father was after dropping off his son and child at the child care center and at the grammar school, which the father does as his duty as a parent. He was stopped on a main route heading back to his household um, by an ICE agent vehicle that pinned him against the road and opened fire, killing him in the head and leaving his kids without a father. We impromptu set up a novena, a novenario in the Latino community of 9 days of mourning at a church. This is Mount Carmel Parish in Melrose Park as a safe space where we had to have volunteer peacekeepers to ensure that people would not be touched by ICE in conducting this novena for 9 days. And we had a final liturgy of memorial mass celebrated by the auxiliary bishop, Jose Maria Chema Garcia Maldonado, who celebrated the principal celebrant of the Eucharist. I'm saying that because that's the degree to which we've had to pivot our mission and ministry in these days. In the first hours of that shooting of Silverio, that's his image in the top corner, uh, Department of Homeland Security announced that he was armed. False, not true. Department of Homeland Security minutes later then reported that he used his vehicle as a weapon against ICE agents, trying to attempt to ram them and harm them and their health. That is also false. That is not true of what happened to him. He was shot in cold blood and sadly a martyr in the midst of this occupation in Chicago. So we have had to do impromptu marches and funerals of this sort. ICE agents, there's the temporary fence that I spoke of outside of the Broadview Detention Center, which we had served for a number of years. That is a minister, a Presbyterian pastor, who was shot by the snipers on the roof that hit him in the head that you might have seen online, hit by a pepper bullet that directly hit him between the temple. Fortunately, he did not have permanent damage from this action of aggression against him. This is why I'm telling you that these kind of stories we need to share with you, because it is important that you're aware of the kind of actions that have happened in this time. But that's not the end of the story. What we heard was that the National Guard was going to be sent out to Chicago to help keep the peace. We thought that would be nothing but another chaotic escalation of this operation of occupying the city. And so a group of 20 parishes got together and traveled over an hour from different carloads and buses and gathered to do an outdoor street mass in front of the gates of the naval base of Great Lakes Naval Base. It's the largest naval base training center for the Navy in the United States. Ironically and interestingly, there along Lake Michigan, that Department of Homeland Security had been renting a few buildings in that space. That is what some of the parishes were doing in public spaces and ways in peaceful means of sharing our story of our experiences as people of faith in recognizing the need to be church with our immigrant community, who, by the way, I'm sharing another slide here. Just this last Saturday, while the church celebrates All Saints Day, we celebrated a gathering of over 1,000 people at the Broadview Detention Center with an outdoor mass, with an attempt to serve Holy Communion to detainees, which unfortunately, but unsurprisingly, was turned down by ICE agents, and officials from Department of Homeland Security refused to allow us to serve communion there. But you see, there's Bishop Jose Maria Garcia Maldonado, who is an immigrant from north central Mexico, and presided at that mass this last Saturday and preached, and was one of those delegates to go in attempt to gain access to the Broadview facility just a few days ago. Um, I'm sharing that with you because it's not all doom and gloom. This has been a moment for us to recognize the different ways of creativity that people, representatives in a public way of the church, have been able to attempt to peacefully push back against the federal government of these unethical, inhumane actions against our community, from racial profiling of pulling people off the sidewalk, walking up to their own household or apartment, which we have seen and witnessed by parishioners, of having to go to parishes where I preach around different parishes, and having to hear in the church announcement that once again we're suspending our religious education program out of an abundance of caution so that our parents are not unfairly a victim of an operation of ICE as they pick up or drop off their kids at religious education. These are the levels of a change in our programming at the Church of Chicago that we have tragically had to undergo. I just, right before I got into this meeting, I was on the phone with a woman who is seeking assistance from the Greater Chicago Food Depository through the parishes to deliver food to her apartment out of her fear of being an immigrant and unable to feel safe to even travel to a food pantry to pick up food. This is what we're now pivoting to, back into the depths of some of the very delicate, sad moments of COVID. That's what we're moving towards in Chicago, out of a way to protect our immigrant community, whom which are a great, significant part of our population, of the community served in and around and across the Chicagoland and Northern Illinois area. A great piece of news across the country: a Chicago priest, Father Gary Graff, decided to embark on a journey through the efforts of a number of us to assist him on beginning a walk in solidarity with immigrants from the childhood house of Pope Leo XIV. You see it in the bottom right picture on your screen, and walk 20 miles a day, where he will conclude his walk at the foot of the Statue of Liberty on December 2nd, Tuesday, December 2nd, in New York. Why? Out of a cry for our country to remember our spirit as an immigrant country, to remember our roots of some of the valor that are recognized worldwide, and remember our roots as people of faith, that we are called to be bridge builders and not to be people who are gatekeepers, one from the other, as people of faith. Father Gary Graff is in a campaign on a website. We are sharing those materials following this talk. Step Up and Speak Out.org, where you can keep up with Father Gary and his journey. You can share stories of families and loved ones you know from the communities you serve, and keep us all in a prayer circle surrounding Father Gary as he concludes his walk of 800 miles, walking for dignity and respect for immigrants. I'm saying all that because everyone is doing something. Everyone has some role to play in. Everyone has something to contribute. And you don't have to be an expert. I didn't study in my seminary days to do anything I'm doing today. I'm literally impressed, astounded, and inspired by so many immigrant people who have put their faith in action over the years and have cultivated a vibrant Catholic community that I proudly serve. let us take a moment. I'll bet there are questions or comments. We want to honor the voices of each of you gathering today.
Thank you, Father. That was so impacting, and really touches our hearts. And I hope, hopefully, that will lead us to action as well. Brendan, this is a question about if you see it in the chat about Catholic leadership and where are they about speaking out against the administration's actions.
I have to say they have been in different spaces, right? So I am proud to have family across the country. This summer I was in a Orange County, California, where a local bishop had just announced that it is not a sin to need to not physically attend the Sunday Mass of your faithful obligation as Catholics in an abundance of respect for the dignity and the fear and the anxiety and the plight of immigrants where they are. That is a remarkably creative, respectful, balanced way of our uh, uh, bishops' conference members to utilize their voice of in the spirit of surrounding immigrants with support. Another bishop said and called for that every minister available who has the ability to be able to move in their diocese, I believe it was San Diego's new bishop, called on all ministers of the diocese to go and accompany immigrants to their appointments, whatever they might be, because they're living in petrified fear, even attending normal, healthy process appointments with Department of Homeland Security that we would all assume would be what everyone would want them to be doing in a appropriate way of formally processing their legal status in the United States. So another very creative way of a bishop, in this case, another example, urging all ministers to be all on deck, if you will, and accompany ministers to their appointments for their immigration processes, small, little, or what we would perceive to not be a appointment that might be in fear, but something of importance there. So those are just a couple. More voice is needed, more voice of the collective whole of bishops, I believe. But it's the voices of these countless creative ways that I am finding inspiration these days.
Brendan, and in light of leadership as well, the bishops will be getting together to vote for their new president bishop. What's your thoughts around that? And is there anything we could do to influence the NCR today? I got in the mail and it doesn't seem too helpful. Hopeful that the candidates that are surfacing are not too supportive of what's on our hearts.
Yeah, I believe that we have to believe in the spirit moving in this to lift up the voices of courage. If we're speaking of the Bishops' Conference for a moment, that's just one of the ways in which our Catholic voice can be outspoken in public. I believe the Thousand Faithful at the Broadview Detention Center was a remarkable reminder to us that every one of you on this Zoom meeting has an important voice to share and contribute on assisting families in plight. Whether it's checking in on families that you know they trust you to share any worries or concerns they may have about their fear that they're living in the midst of these days with the federal government and possible ICE operations, to efforts like prayer vigils at the detention centers across the country. Our faithful are the ones that are the vast majority of those detained by the federal government today. We all need to know that the majority of those detained today are Catholic. They need to see our face wherever that happens to be, as a reminder to each of us, no matter what your plight or condition, Christ is with you, and God never gives up on us.
Thank you first, Father Brendan, for all of your testimonials tonight, especially the first person that you've actually been there on the front lines. And it's just so encouraging to hear, your witness of faith and your courage. Um, I wanted to ask one question, but first suggest that it'd be
Sure.
great if we could raise the money to send you to every seminary in the United States and talk to the seminarians with that and help them understand their need this is where the gospel is being lived in America right now. But my question to you is, at a parish level, a lot of people still, kind of relate to at the parish level.
Sure.
What are your suggestions, as a pastor yourself for essentially everybody on that, most of the people on this are white suburbanites. How can we engage in this issue? How can we get involved as a parish and do something about it?
I think we would be surprised at how many of our parishes, if not all of our parishes, have immigrants who are in fear today. So we should not take lightly the way that that touches people to feel welcome there. What that means is what material is in your parish bulletin that might be adapted to recognize signs of welcome. So, um, uh, welcoming the stranger, the famous Matthew quote. How about if, you know, during this month of November, when we honor all the saints and all souls, we have to honor all of the footsteps of those who've journeyed, not just journeyed in their lifetime, but journeyed physically in our own midst as immigrant families, whether it be a generation back or three back or present immigrants. That's one thing. Another thing would be, is there should be an alert that people know a family response phone number for immediate services for support for immigrants. Wherever we are, every state has one of those service numbers in one way or the other. Don't take lightly that there isn't someone who needs to hear that. And it reassures them. The symbols of welcoming at your parish are extremely needed today. If you want families who are immigrants to feel welcome, you have to physically show it by ritual, symbol, sign, and incorporating of those. Every little bit is much more than you realize to go a long way. That's the feedback I get from immigrants these days. They want to feel their churches with them.
Brendan, we don't want to keep you late, but I think I froze. But my question was, and people were asking, those that are journeying to New York, are they coming anywhere close to Pittsburgh that we
You
could?
are absolutely correct on that. So tonight, Father Gary is spending the night in Boyers, Pennsylvania, um,
Okay.
which is northeast of Pittsburgh. Because he can't travel walking on a federal highway that's illegal, he's taking rural byways in order to pass there. If you go to speakout.org website, step up and speak out, just so you know, and it's in the chat. You can find out where he is because he's got his Instagram posts from every single place he is. So he's heading east of Boyers. So if you know anyone along the way, send a message back to the website or nudge me. I am giving my contact information. I'm a good friend of Father Gary. We'll make sure that we connect you. If you know loved ones along the way, want to walk a mile with him, walk a mile with him. He would love it. Really appreciate any effort, near or far. So if you have loved ones all along that, Boyers going straight east through the midst of Pennsylvania, it's time to get out your Google map and take a look. We would love to have you join us. And if not, Battery Park, New York on Tuesday, the 2nd of December, I'll be there. We want to join in an interfaith gathering, celebrating the love of a spirit of immigrants in welcoming Father Gary to conclude his journey of 800 miles in New York City.
Great. And then lastly, the individual that was killed, is there an investigation into his murder? And then I'll give you the opportunity to give concluding remarks.
The investigation was kept very secretive, no surprise to any of you, considered a federal investigation. That means not even his own loved ones could see his body for several days. Autopsy was done, etc. And he is now buried in Mexico. We do not have high hope, but we are aware of the perpetrator, and the evidence is actually online from some video clips of that incident and tragedy. So more details about that. In terms of a final message, I would say this. We know our country is better than where we are today. We believe as people of faith, we believe in the resurrection, right? And not to be dramatic, but that's what brings us to this space. That even in the midst of times of fight, of difficulty and struggle, we believe in a new day where people don't get targeted by their color of their skin on the road, of racial profiling, whether it be Chicago or Portland or wherever that might be these days. We know that the courts and the system that we believe in can have a better day than it is today. We believe that our truth and the story of truth will at the end win the day. We just have to be authentic to our faith tradition that reminds us to welcome the stranger, for we were once strangers ourselves. We know that. That's my physical family story. I'm almost sure that unless somebody's a relative of the Pilgrims, you probably weren't either. So it's just a thought, a nudge for each of you. Let's keep each other in prayer, but let's also use our strength of putting our faith into action. We weren't here just to go to Mass. We're here to put our faith in action in difficult times of crisis. That's what we believe. Now it's what we need to live. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, Brendan. You're a blessing to us and to the community of Chicago. We'll pray for each other. Take
Appreciate
care.
it. Thanks so much.
And now it's my honor to reintroduce to you Sister Janice Vanderneck, who's the founder of Casa San Jose, Ministry of the Sisters of St. Joseph, and she will let you know about what's going on locally.
We started collecting official data in March at Casa San Jose with the activation of our rapid response teams. And until October 28th, that's when the information on the spreadsheet is available. October 28th was the last date on which it was written down. Because they will do it at the end of the week. We've had 119 persons taken, and it's been broadly in the Southwest PA area, Westmoreland County, Allegheny County, Beaver County, Washington County. I'm probably Butler County, well, yes, definitely Cranberry is Butler County. So we started gearing up right away as soon as November election happened, and because Trump based his whole campaign on the fact that he was going to go after immigrants and his claim that they are criminals and making our country less secure. Of the people that have been taken, none of them has been a criminal. They are by and large family people or single men. Sometimes there are women taken. We do have at Casa San Jose various ministries to try to respond to the needs of the families when the loved one is taken. In many cases, it's the breadwinner, and therefore mom and children are left with no income and at risk of homelessness and not being able to provide for basic necessities. So Casa San Jose has been able to acquire through rent, and one parish, St. Joseph the Worker, has actually given us the use of a former rectory. And these are places where we can house these mothers and children on a temporary basis until the determination of their loved one. Is that person going to be released on bail, or is that person going to be deported? And when that determination is made, that gives the mother and her with her children to capacity to make a better decision, the information she needs to make a good decision about returning to the home country. In many cases, some of the younger children are born in this country and therefore citizens. One of the things, as I said, that we had to quickly set up was our rapid response network. Prior to that, we had been doing Know Your Rights trainings. The information that we had been giving in those Know Your Rights trainings, especially regarding ask to see a judicial warrant, that seems to have completely gone by the wayside. That ICE does not seem to be showing judicial warrants at all, and taking the people anyway. The abuse of civil rights is another incredible reality that is happening. And we do have Casa San Jose has great partnership with the ACLU with regard to protecting people's rights. However, we realized that we also needed to be ready to support people and give them a network and a structure for when ICE shows up at their door or in their neighborhood. In the beginning, we were having lots of persons becoming very anxious and afraid when people would start passing around on Facebook, oh, ICE has been spotted here or there. So we have it now so that there is a phone number. Maybe Kevin Hayes or Sister Barbara, if you know that phone number for the emergency hotline, you could put it in the chat. I'll look it up later if nobody can put it in the chat. The emergency hotline, we try to make that known to all persons, immigrant and not immigrant alike, to call that number when you see what appears to be ICE, either sitting in wait in some parking lot or along some street, or actively pursuing, entering a building or taking people. We hope that the persons will call immediately that hotline, and once our hotline is attended 24/7, and once that call is put through, a rapid response team is sent out to respond. We try to choose persons that are within no more than 20 minutes of the physical site. We have a great number of rapid response team members, and that helps for us to be able to reach out to all these areas, like I mentioned to you. And then once we get to the site, we do, like Father Brendan says, record on your cell phone what you are seeing happening, so that you have some proof if civil rights are being violated. We also try to get the exact name of the individual that they are taking, so that we can send a volunteer lawyer. We have lawyers lined up for each day of the month. This way they only have to do one day a month. They don't have to be immigration attorneys to go down to 3000 Sydney Street on the south side, where they are taken for their first check-in with ICE. And if we get a lawyer down there, right away they can enter representation for the individual. That doesn't mean they're going to be able to get the individual right away, but at least they can get access to what number is being issued to that immigrant to help keep track of where they're sending that immigrant. Oh, thank you, Joyce. Joyce Rothermel put the hotline number into the chat. All of you, please take it and call us if you see ICE presence. We also want to talk to the family members that are there to find out, whatever information we can about the loved one who's being taken, as well as let the family know that Casa San Jose is here to help, and that they can, let us know what their needs are. We fortunately over the years have developed a great case management system for helping the people with resources for their livelihood. Once the person is taken into detention, they do need an actual immigration attorney, and we do have networks of attorneys. None of it is free. It's very, very costly and complicated. But as I said, sometimes the detainee can be eligible for getting out under bond. And then we also, Casa San Jose has connection with a bond fund. Many of people like you have contributed to our bond fund so that there is money there to get that bond paid immediately. As you know how a bond works, if the person, whatever decision the judge makes, either that the person can remain in the country or the person is going to be detained, once the final decision of the judge is made, the bond money is returned. So that bond fund, over time will replenish itself. Right now, we find ourselves in the crisis of those families that are in need are going to be very much more. If they had American citizen children, they probably got SNAP, because almost all the families we work with are very low income, even though they work many long hours and several jobs. If they were American citizen children, they probably got SNAP, and of course that's going to be disappearing. Casa San Jose has many programs for the youth, for English as a second language, for connecting people with medical care. When you don't have a social security number, you are not eligible for any, even if you had the money, any medical insurance. So connecting the people up with dental care, medical care. We have, thank goodness, we have mental health program, which became needed ever since, Trump's first term, when the deportations and the ICE presence was, plus the trauma that the people go through just leaving their home country, the conditions under which they were exposed in their home country, the conditions along the route to get here, and what happened to them at the border and so on. There's a lot of trauma. And so we're very fortunate to have that mental health program. And one of them, several, shockingly horrible instances happened with ICE, as you're probably aware of from the news. One was at Emiliano's restaurant in Cranberry, where ICE just went into the restaurant and had no respect for the property and took like 16 people. Another one that we were very, very aware of, because our Sisters of St. Joseph are at our mother house in Baden, happened in Ambridge, which is only 10 minutes away. And we had many friends and supporters and sisters present when the county sheriff, Beaver County Sheriff Tony Guy, entered a agreement with ICE so that his Beaver County Sheriff's Office patrolmen and policemen cooperate with ICE, call ICE at traffic stops and so on. And he accompanied Ambridge police and ICE agents in a horrible late night entrapment in Ambridge. They just were picking people up out of their cars, off the street. It was shocking. And the people were terrorized by it. And to this day, any immigrants, Ambridge is a big location for immigrants. They're scared to go on the streets. Tony Guy was called to the Beaver County Commissioners just last week, and a number of our supporters attended. A lot of people who supported the agreement to cooperate with ICE were also there. It was a tense meeting. I wasn't there, but our sisters were there. And one of our sisters spoke up about our position as Catholics, being that immigrants are persons with human dignity. Their civil rights should be respected. To claim that they are criminals is a falsehood. And afterwards, I think this is just so very typical of the situation we find ourselves in today. Afterwards, a woman came up to Sister Mary Parks and said to her, well, I'm a Catholic too, and I don't agree one bit with what you're saying. So that shows the extent of differences, if we did not already know, within the divisiveness that enters even into our Catholic teaching, because the United States Conference of Catholic Bishops teaching is very clear on this issue. Bishop Mark Seitz from El Paso is the leader of that committee on immigration. He is an outstanding individual and speaks very clearly on the church's teaching about immigrants, and it just is not accepted by a great number of not only Catholics but bishops. I don't know if it's that they don't accept it, but they sure don't speak it out loud. But I've been working real hard, as have many other Catholics, on working with our Bishop Ekman, Bishop Larry Canary of Westmoreland, Greensburg, working with them in hopes of reaching a public statement soon. One of the things I would like to ask all of you who are Catholics, if you could engage even a small group of people in your parish and say, see if you can get it put in the bulletin, just so people know that there are a group of Catholics meeting about how to make your parish welcoming to immigrants and how to reach out to support immigrants in this most difficult of times. I'd be happy to come to your parish and have the conversation with you. I do think perhaps one of the ways that we can work against the divisiveness is by learning how to talk to one another about the issues without becoming, belligerent towards the other side, but actually conversing with the other side. And Kevin Hayes put all the information in the chat about our prayer vigil held at the ICE facility, as I mentioned, 3000 Sydney Street on the south side. It's a growing community. We have a great sense of camaraderie, and the prayer is very, very inspiring. Many different faith groups are present. Each Friday, it's a different group. Sister Barbara does all the scheduling, so she knows better than I that there are groups who really want to come forward and lead the prayer, which is also a beautiful thing. So please do come to that. I think I may have seen somebody asking about how to become a member of the rapid response teams. And you would go to Casa San Jose's website. I'm sure somebody will be able to put into the chat our website, www.casasanjose.org. Go to our website, and there's a volunteer portal, and you can put your information into that volunteer portal, and you see that to become a volunteer, you have to have your clearances. That's a Catholic Church policy, as well as our policy, because you might get into that rapid response issue, rapid response event, and maybe both parents are taken and you're left there with the children. Well, we would want you to have your your clearances, pardon me. So you can go to that volunteer portal, as I said, on our website, and start the process to become a volunteer. There are trainings, and there are trainings that are given publicly, and you will be informed of that, or always check our website because we have a calendar on there too. We don't like to give out the address of Casa San Jose starting in January. We were very frightened. Our place over on Broadway in Beachview was vulnerable. All glass, an old building, all glass on the windows. They were storefronts, and all glass on the fronts, I meant to say. And the doors were old wooden doors, and they would have been easy to break down. And we did have some people actually come in and say, go back to your own country. We don't want you here. So we felt very threatened there. So we moved to a location, which is a Episcopalian church that no longer has a congregation. And what we do is, if you call us and ask for services and need to come to our site, we will give you the address. Or if we have any meetings with our volunteers, we of course give you the instructions on how to get there.
Janice, I think we would say that there's no minimum amount of people needed for the rapid response. So please, if you feel called to do that, we need all the counties covered, and people available.
Yes, that's correct, Barbara. And it is taking us some time to get everybody processed. That is taking us some time. So we do need people to be patient.
Earlier, it was interesting to see that somebody said, could we give this or send this recording to the Pope? And I think it's a possibility. Earlier in the year, we had our Pax Christi National Conference, and I was able to get the Pope to write us a statement. So what you have to do is go through the Papal Nuncio office, and we could try. We could ask them if they would send it off to him. And I'm sure he would, especially when it's talking about Chicago.
I have a question. Are there any groups out here with your order, Sister Janice? Do you have any suggestions out for the San Francisco Bay Area? We have a very conservative bishop, and an archbishop that's arch conservative.
Oh boy.
Have any references out here?
Well, in Southern California, in the San Diego diocese, they are so fabulous. The Archdiocese of Los Angeles has a wonderful ministry for Hispanic immigrants. But San Francisco or Sisters of St. Joseph, no, I'm not familiar.
What I would suggest is contacting the Sisters of St. Joseph of Orange,
thank you,
California, and they minister especially around the northern area of the Bay Area. We've had a conversation almost every Friday about as APP, we're all consider ourselves priests. So, however, it's important that the officially ordained show up. And so we're really encouraging you in your parishes, if you can get your pastor, if not every Friday, every once in a while, to come out and really witness to the fact that the Catholic Church is standing up for immigrants. That would be wonderful. And it means a lot to the people that join us of the other Christian traditions. I mean, they're really bringing out their clergy a lot, and we're kind of backward as Catholics.
I wanted to tell everyone, if you don't know this already, that one of the biggest detention centers in Pennsylvania is Moshannon Valley, and it is north of State College. and Moshannon Valley is where a number of the folks are sent. They're also sent to Youngstown and Erie. They can spend weeks there. And then if they're going to be deported, they are sent south to Louisiana or Texas. And from there, they are deported.
Just an update. We're formulating, well, we have a local group of Pax Christi, but we're also in the process of formulating Pennsylvania Pax Christi. And we've talked about an action of calling all Pennsylvanians to converge on Moshannon at some point. It might not be until after the holidays, but we would go and we would have a vigil outside of Moshannon and have a press conference. And then Jaime has a way of getting some of us in as chaplains to actually interact with some of the residents. So anyway, so that's in the offing. So if you have interest in being a part of that, you can let me know.
Oh, the other thing I wanted to ask you all, please, to do, if you can organize a group of your fellow residents in your local area to organize and go to your town council or your borough council and ask that your local police force not sign these agreements with ICE. They don't, ICE does not need our local police to be doing these horrific things. Our local police are there to protect and serve the local community. They are not there to be federal agents of immigration. And those meetings with borough councils have been successful.
Yeah.
So I would encourage you, if you can gather some residents of your area, to go and do that.
Janice, is there any final word of wisdom you want to share before we move it on?
Well, hope, we're called Pilgrims of Hope. The church is calling us to be Pilgrims of Hope. And I know that when we have our prayer on Fridays, often we will sing the sort of classic Hispanic tune, Santa Maria del Camino, our Holy Mother, Holy Mary of the journey. And I just can picture the inmates, even if they can't sing it out loud, singing it in their heart, because Mary's words in that song assure them that they are not alone, that she will be with them just as she was to Juan Diego as Our Lady of Guadalupe.
Thank you. And we really appreciate you, Janice, when you sing that every Friday. It
Thank
means
you.
a whole lot to us as well.